You go to TeleRx, one of my new sponsors. They're a medical freedom online pharmacy that's arisen, but one that doesn't take any of your personal data. You don't have to submit pictures of yourself or any personal information or anything. Basically, you consent to understanding what you're getting. Like me, I got an EpiPen, 50% off, by the way. They're direct to consumer, so it's a lot cheaper. They purport themselves to be one of the pharmacies that has arisen during a time of an attack on medical freedom, frankly, that isn't going to bow to pressure from the government or hospital groups or pharmaceutical companies. And so you have a wide variety of options as an informed consumer. You guys know I'm a proponent really of natural health. Like I'm taking a lot of vitamin C right now, hopefully, so I don't go into anaphylactic shock next time I get stung by a hornet. But I did get an EpiPen, and it's $500 at my regular pharmacy, and it's 50% that price at telerx.com. So again, you get 20% off with promo code Allison. All right, Mike Rausch is back. He is a former TV news director, has led many big news rooms around the country, and he's one of the few that actually cares about free speech. So let's give him a slow clap, everybody. He's here to talk about the First Amendment. There are still journalists who care about the First Amendment. It turns out, Mike, you happen to be on at the beginning of the arguments before the Supreme Court for Missouri v. Biden, which is a landmark free speech case. Actually, one of my podcast videos from a few years ago from 2021 is part of that case because Dr. Aaron Kheriaty is one of the plaintiffs. There is a protest rally trying to save the First Amendment outside the Supreme Court right now. The High Wire has it live, so I'm just going to see we'll just check in, see what they're doing right now. Mike, let me know if you can't hear it. And I don't know who these people are, but it says live stream brought to you by the Informed Consent Action Network, and hopefully it will keep playing. Well, actually, you know what, Mike, since it's not playing and I'll get it queued up, why don't you tell me what you think about the fact that journalists...
Here we go. Wiser.
Here we go.
And an informed citizen is a dangerous citizen. And they know from history, because we've been here.
Doesn't like me. An informed citizen is a dangerous citizen is what that guy just said. Mike, let's talk about journalists specifically. Why are they never seeming to chime in on their concern over this? They seem to show their bias. It seems to be an era of journalism where showing your bias and concern over certain things is totally allowed. But when it comes to the First Amendment, nobody seems to be chiming in. It can't possibly be because they're being told in their newsrooms, don't show your bias, because that seems to be something they're fine sharing if it suits them topically. What's up with the crickets among journalists over the attack on the First Amendment these days?
Well, it's a deep and complex topic. I wore a tie today in the spirit of old-fashioned journalism, right? You know, the old concept of the First Amendment, free speech and objectivity, which, is kind of falling by the wayside these days. It's we've talked about this before. I mean, the concept is it's a hive. The media in general has joined a club that radiates from an orb, and they all buy into it. And this concept of questioning anything and everything, and the old idea of truth to power, that sort of thing that journalists like to chant, doesn't seem to exist anymore. And that's one reason we're talking today about RTDNA, an organization I used to belong to, Radio and Television Digital News Directors Association, endorsing and having Jen Psaki, Biden's former press secretary and now MSNBC pundit, as the master of ceremonies of their First Amendment dinner and awards ceremony, which I thought was incredibly strange and bizarre. And there are a few of us, I think, that agreed with that, but most journalists, broadcast news directors, and others seem to be okay with it, which seemed to be incredibly bizarre, And my concept wouldn't be to ban anybody from doing anything, but when you think about who's going to represent the First Amendment, it turns out to be someone who was doing everything publicly and behind the scenes to negate the First Amendment while saying at the same time she supported the First Amendment and it wasn't being violated. We know we can talk about that going forward, that it was all in COVID, but it's back to the hive. A lot of people find it baffling, and I get asked about it all the time. What's wrong with the media? Why are they so biased? Why are they so biased in favor of the left? And it's just hard to explain and understand. A lot of people think there's like a meeting that they have, or they're all in the same email, and that's not the case. it's just this collective view, and journalists then go on, the most part, on a day-to-day basis doing journalism for their colleagues who think the way they do. They're not out there talking to average people and getting average opinions and really sampling where the nation is. And it's particularly egregious nowadays, I think, in the environment we're in, where everything is so polarized and so split. And when I think so many people, like you and me even, when you're looking for news, where do you go for news? I don't know. Everybody's looking for some kind of unbiased venue, but where is that? I don't know.
What she said, why we thought this was interesting that she got to MC the First Amendment Award.
Yeah. This is just some background on what she said from her podium at the White House and in an interview with a local station here, where she talked about the concept of, depressing, could be her word maybe, misinformation on the whole COVID issue. So it's, you kind of see what she's saying, and then behind the scenes, you don't see what they're actually doing.
Okay.
So many people across the country and in North Carolina are getting their information via social media.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki sounding the alarm, telling me the Biden administration has launched a new campaign to fight COVID-related misinformation.
When there are posts out there that have information that is inaccurate, that is spreading inaccurate information about vaccines, the effectiveness of vaccines, the fact that they can save lives, we just raise those posts and flag them. So we are regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health that we and many other Americans are seeing across all of social and traditional media. And we work to engage with them to better understand the enforcement of social media platform policies.
Last week, the Surgeon General also was asked on MSNBC about Joe Rogan's vaccine comments on Spotify, and he said that tech companies have an important role to play in stopping misinformation because they are the predominant places where misinformation spreads. Does the White House and the administration think this is a satisfactory step?
Our hope is that all major tech platforms and all major news sources, for that matter, be responsible and be vigilant to ensure the American people have access to accurate information on something as significant as COVID-19. That certainly includes Spotify.
Okay, Spotify. Joe Rogan, what a danger to democracy he turned out to be. So if you look at what's interesting about it, as I mentioned earlier, there's been no accounting for all the things that they suppressed that turned out to be true, right? If you go back to COVID, it is a long list of things that were independent people were saying, hey, take a look at this, that the government was saying, no, that's not true. But it turned out that those independent voices were accurate in what they were saying. But if you saw in that story, the reporter followed the narrative, right? It's all about, he was all in on, we got to control disinformation, and he got an interview with Jen Psaki. So, that was going to be a big story, but he never once questioned her, nor did his organization question her on the whole issue of define this disinformation concept and where it starts and where it ends, and how it can really become a serious big thing if it's not controlled right now. So like I said, it's the hive and everybody's a member of the club, and that reporter probably didn't dare ask a tough question. I guarantee he didn't bring it up. He probably knew he couldn't. And whether he was on board with the whole idea of supporting disinformation, I don't know. But certainly he should have followed the tenet of asking the tough questions. And that would have been the follow-up. That should have been as much of the story as what she was saying as, well, what is disinformation and where does that stop? Where does it end? And what is the government's role in controlling that, in a world of a free press and free speech?
Glenn Greenwald tweeted this a little bit ago. This is a snapshot of the CNBC article, FBI and White House likely coerce social media platforms into removing posts, appeals court rules, and wrote the most underreported and underdiscussed story of 2023. A federal district court judge upheld by a unanimous appellate panel found the Biden White House and FBI committed one of the gravest attacks on the First Amendment in decades by coercing big tech to censor dissent online. Again, going back to the Supreme Court case that is going to be argued this week, Missouri v. Biden, today. And then talking about Jen Psaki, I genuinely think, Mike, that like this award ceremony and how this all works, it is an active suppression in the sense that it's like a mind dope for the journalists, and they take the most important, or potentially maybe they take the journalists who have big mouthpieces so that they keep them in line. Like, they wouldn't invite me because I'm already lost. I'm one of the people, I'm a lost sheep. There's nobody cares about me, and they can just keep me quiet.
Well, you should be watched 24/7. I mean, no question about it.
They don't need to watch me because I have such a small audience. You know, they got on top of me years ago, and I have such a small audience that I'm not really somebody they care that much about. But they would care about somebody getting turned that has the mouthpiece of like an MSNBC, or, you know, somebody who's really big in the independent media sphere. I can see that. And I see these, you know, these award ceremonies, dinners, cocktail parties, the White House press dinner that they have, the National Correspondents' Dinner. I see them now as means to suppress the critical thinking of journalists, not by telling them overtly, like, what happens to me, we're ripping your video offline, but much more dangerously and quietly, which is, we'll let you in the club. You know, you're going to be one of us. You get to go to our parties. You get to hang out with us. You get to feel important. Lots of journalists like to feel very important. And I don't know, it just seems like that's been a very effective tool for them. I want to go over to AlisonMorrow.locals.com real fast. Mike, okay. 1 second. Where you can be on my editorial board, $5 a month to go one-on-one with the most censored people on the internet. We got a bunch of questions for Mike.